Hello, good morning. Today we're going to continue uh, from the previous class. I'm going to be, I think, taking the fat soluble vitamins. I think from the glycolytic through the PCA cycle, you've seen and you've been exposed to the importance of vitamins, really. Like the enzyme that catalyzes the conversion of pyruvate to acetyl-CoA, pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. You remember very clearly there was a compound TPP, thymine pyrophosphate. Thymine, vitamin B1 is thymine, I believe, right? So this is a prosthetic group that is required by that enzyme. So vitamins such as like your water-soluble vitamins, for example, vitamin B, vitamin C, play roles as coenzymes in your metabolism. So coenzymes in that they help your enzymes perform their functions, right? You have fat-soluble vitamins and water-soluble vitamins. So fat-soluble vitamins are what we call ADEK, vitamin A or retinol, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K, ADEK, ADEK, right? Those are fat soluble vitamins. I think everything here is self-explanatory, to be honest. You just need to take your time and read. Vitamins are organic molecules that are required in small quantity but for a variety of biochemical functions, and which generally cannot be synthesized in the body, but must be supplied in the diet or as supplements. Okay, so I think this is quite straightforward. Some of these vitamins can be synthesized by intestinal microflora. You do understand that you have microorganisms in your intestine, right? And some of those microorganisms can synthesize these vitamins, but they might not synthesize enough quantity to suffice the need of the body. And that's why you need vitamins from exogenous sources, from food, diet, from outside the body, right? And we humans require at least 12 vitamins. We have vitamin A, B, C, D, E, F, and K, right? Vitamin B is, I think, subdivided into vitamin B1, B2, B3, B4, 5, right? I'm not sure. B6, there's B6, there's vitamin B12, right? Okay, we like, right? All right, so vitamins can be grouped uh, according to whether they are soluble in water or not. And that's why you have water-soluble vitamins and fat-soluble vitamins, okay? The water-soluble vitamins, such as vitamin B and C, function as coenzyme, which I've mentioned earlier, while your fat-soluble vitamins participate in different processes, such as blood clotting, like vitamin K, for example, plays a significant role in blood clotting. Vision, that you're talking about vitamin A. You talk about sight. You can't talk about sight without mentioning vitamin A, okay? Um, Now, your vitamin A is also called retinol. Now, the first group for vitamin A, two groups of compounds have vitamin A activity. First, we have the retinoid compound class, that's retinol, retinal, and retinoic acid, which are preformed vitamin A from animal origin. The second group is the carotenoid, okay? As you can see here in this slide, this is an example of carotenoid. It's found in carrot. Usually the carotenoid are from plant origins, right? Okay, so you could read of this, the mechanism, what happens, and why it's recommended that you don't put your vitamin E under sunlight, because vitamin A is heat stable but sensitive to UV light. So this is why it's not good to put your palm oil in sun. Palm oil is rich in vitamin A. Putting it in the sun can cause the loss of vitamin A because the sun has ultraviolet rays, and those ultraviolet rays could degrade your vitamin A, right? So take your time and read because we can't give you everything, can't spoon feed you. What I'm here to offer guidance. I think this is good enough guidance, all right? So sources of vitamin A. The richest dietary sources of reformed vitamin A, retinol, are fish liver oils, also known as cod liver oil. While you can also get vitamin A from liver of animals, milk, and dairy products, especially in this era where milk and dairy products are fortified, right? Dark green vegetables. I've shown you carrots, right? And other things, yellow or red fruits, carrots, of course, tomatoes, palm oil, the richest dietary source of carotenoids. All right. So the function of vitamin A basically is in the vision, like I mentioned earlier, right? Now this here, your note mentions the mechanism of vitamin A mediated improvement of vision. Vision is based on the absorption of light by photoreceptor cells in the eye. Now, in biochemistry, we go deep. We don't just stop at photoreceptor cells. You have two kinds of cells, photoreceptors in the eye. As nurses, you should know we've done physiology and anatomy. The rods and the cones, right? These are cells of the eye, photoreceptors. Cones function in bright light and are responsible for color vision, whereas rods function in dim light but do not perceive color. Of course, in dim lights, you're worried, you're worried, you worry about seeing, not about discerning colors, right? You don't want to be differentiating color if you are seeing in a close to dark environments. Okay. So the human retina contains, of course, you should read this. Take this. The photoreceptor molecule in rods is called rhodopsin. Now, this photoreceptor molecule in the rods is called rhodopsin, which consists of protein opsin covalently linked to 11-cis retinal that serves as prosthetic glue. Now, this is a derivative of your vitamin A, the retinoic group. And this is how they help in giving the eye the function of sight by functioning as a prosthetic group for rhodopsin, which is a photoreceptor molecule in rods, right? This makes sense now, right? This is seeing things from a biochemical point of view. While the iodopsin is a photoreceptor molecule present in the cones, okay? So this is quite interesting. Okay. So gene expression and tissue differentiation. This is another function of vitamins. First, the function of vitamins here is in sight. Second function is in gene expression. Since this vitamin is fat soluble, it means it can easily find its way to the nucleus. It will pass through the membrane, cell membrane or plasma membrane, penetrate the nuclear membrane, and go and bind to some transcription factor in the nucleus and influence or regulates or control gene expression. Basically, this is what they're saying here. Okay, so all trans-retinoic acid or 9-cis retinoic acid regulate growth, development, and tissue differentiation. So we have two types of retinoic acid that play a significant role. All are derivatives of vitamin A. Right? There's a trans-retinoic acid, there's a 9,6 retinoic acid, and they both regulate growth. Okay. Courtesy of vitamin A, development and tissue, they both regulate growth, development, and tissue differentiation. Courtesy of vitamin A, they have different actions in tissues. Retinoic acid binds to nuclear receptor. Just like I said, right? Because they're fat soluble, they can easily pass through and penetrate the nucleus or bind to a nuclear receptor on the nuclear membrane, regulate the transcription of specific genes, okay? And binding to nuclear receptor will initiate messengers that will now bind to transcription factor and regulate specific genes expression. Specific gene expression. There are two families of nuclear retinoid receptors, the retinoic acid receptor. Now, the nuclear retinoic receptors that can bind retinoic acid, for example. You have two classes, the retinoic acid receptors that bind all trans retinoic acid or 9-cis-retinoic acid and the retinoic X receptors, which bind only 9-cis-retinoic acid. So I think this is quite straightforward. You have trans-retinoic acid, cis-retinoic acid, and then the nuclear receptors that are those that bind only trans-retinoic acid here, the retinoic acid receptor REX, those that bind only 9-cis-retinoic acid here are retinoic X receptors. Basically, that's what they're saying here. Okay. All right. So deficiency of vitamin A, of course, blindness should be the main topic of discussion. Of course, there are other deficiencies associated with, there are other diseases, disorders associated with the deficiency of vitamin A, like xerophthalmia, okay, growth retardation, dermatitis, anorexia. It's your job to read this, okay? Of course, too much of everything is bad. The compound you take as a drug, if you abuse it, it becomes poison, right? So even your paracetamol, you take it as an analgesic. If you take too much of it, it turns into poison. So it's the same thing here with vitamin A. You certainly don't want to take too much of it, okay? Or you're going to be faced with serious consequences. All right. Excessive intake leads to accumulation beyond the capacity of the binding protein opsin, so that unbound vitamin A causes tissue damage. It can cause congenital deformity in fetus. It can be teratogenic to pregnant women. Okay. Symptoms of toxicity affect the central nervous system, cause headache, anorexia, lack of appetite, ataxia, okay, defective muscular control, leading to staggering. Liver and bones can also be affected. Your skin can also be affected. Okay. Now, vitamin D, because you know vitamin D, right? Cholecalciferol. Usually, this is seen as a hormone more than a vitamin. The body can synthesize this. So people that live in tropical regions like Nigeria, where you have enough sunlight, you usually don't have deficiency of vitamin D. But people that live in temperate regions, Iceland, all those temperate weathers, where you don't have a lot of sunlight like that, you have more winter than summer. Usually they face the problem of low vitamin D. Okay. There are two forms of vitamin D. Naturally produced vitamin D3, cholecalciferol, which is obtained from animal sources. And then there's the artificially produced vitamin D2, which has pharmaceutical application. You can probably get this in a pharmacy. Basically, that's what you're saying. It's made in the laboratory by irradiating the plant sterol, ecosterol, and it's the most readily available for pharmaceutical use. I think everything I just mentioned is here. Let's take your time and read your lecture note, okay? Dietary sources of vitamin D, of course, most dietary fortified foods, milk, fortified milk, right? And other sources include liver, cod liver oil, egg yolk. Well, majorly the weather also plays a role in mediating the body, mediating synthesis of vitamin D by the body. Okay. So the summer, those are weather that have a lot of summer, we have a lot of sun, shouldn't have problems with synthesizing vitamin. So the functions of vitamin D, regulation of calcium metabolism and absorption. Basically, that's what it does. Vitamin D is converted to this compound, calcitriol, the active hormone by hydroxylation, the action in the liver and kidneys. It binds to receptor structurally similar to steroid receptors to form a complex that functions as a transcription factor, thereby regulating gene expression. So I don't want to go too deep because I think probably this is your first introduction to biochemistry. But in biochemistry, we look at things from a cellular point of view. We look at the cell. Cell has a nucleus, there's a nuclear membrane, and there's a cytoplasm, And then there's a cytoplasmic membrane or plasma membrane. So usually fat soluble compounds that are lipid soluble to an extent can easily penetrate cell membranes because the membrane is a lipid bilayer. So fat-soluble vitamins will probably play significant roles in gene expression because of their ability to traverse the lipid bilayer of membranes and reach the nuclear membrane very easily compared to water-soluble compounds, which might find it difficult to pass through lipid bilayer of a membrane without a protein transporter or some kind of transporter. Alternatively, water-soluble vitamins or water-soluble compounds that mediate gene expression usually bind to a receptor on the surface of the membrane and end up producing second messenger. Just like I discussed in the last class when we were discussing fatty regulation of fatty acid oxidation. You remember I mentioned cyclic AMP, which is a second messenger. So sometimes gene expression occur through second messengers. So let's not go too deep. Let's not get too confused. If you have time, maybe in other courses, you get up to speed on this. All right, vitamin D deficiency, of course, causes what they call rickets, weak bones, because calcium metabolism is compromised. I hope you, I hope you take a lot of calcium, or I hope you have enough vitamin D. Otherwise, your bones are in great danger. Okay, so take your time and read this, please. Okay, toxicity of vitamin D. High concentration of vitamin D in the plasma can lead to contraction of blood vessels because if you have too much soft vessels, vessels that are supposed to be flexible become hard. Now, when a vessel or tissue is supposed to be loose, flexible, and because you have too much calcium in your body due to vitamin D mediated calcinosis, then that flexibility is lost, right? Calcification of soft tissues such as liver and kidney could probably lead to death, really, I mean, you have an idea what a liver should look like. It's not supposed to be a hard object, but toxicity of vitamin D can cause your liver to turn into something like a stone or a semi-stone, for example. And what do you think will happen? Cause there will be problems, right? And you have vitamin E, right? Vitamin E, also called tocopherol, tocopherols. It's a generic name. You have different forms of vitamin E, tocopherol alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and so on. Usually, this vitamin functions more or less as an antioxidant, to quench oxidative stress in the cell, get rid of oxidative stress. You need antioxidants in your system. There has to be a balance between oxidants, radicals, and antioxidants, those that get rid of radicals. Now, its antioxidant functions include radical chain breaking, cell membrane, plasma lipoprotein, by reacting with lipid peroxide, radicals, and so on. Deficiency of vitamin E is not very common, but there are cases where you have it, it has been suggested to cause hemolytic anemia. Okay. Now, vitamin K, which is the vitamin that plays a significant role in blood clotting. Right? When you have a wound, that's let's say there's the cut on your skin at certain points, the blood will start clotting, try to cover up, seal up the cut, right? Vitamin K plays a significant role in this regard. Okay, plus, okay, K is the most important function of vitamin K is in its role in synthesis of blood clotting proteins, as it's called blood clotting vitamin. Okay, two naturally occurring vitamin K. There's phyloquinone, which is which emanates from green vegetables, and then there's menaquinones, which emanates from synthesized by the intestinal bacteria of children, but adults cannot synthesize vitamin K. Well, how ironic, right? So you need it. Okay. Gets vitamin K from egg yolk, meats, tomatoes, green vegetables, and so on. And then here, the function here also mentions the mechanism through which this happens. Vitamin K has been known for many years to be essential for the synthesis of prothrombin. If you know blood clotting, you know about prothrombin, thrombin, fibrinogen, those proteins that play important roles in blood clotting. So vitamin K is required for the synthesis of prothrombin. So it makes vitamin K a prosthetic group, right? You understand? And more or less, the vitamin K participates in the carboxylation of glutamate residues to gamma carboxyglutamate. You know what a carboxylation reaction is, right? Addition of a carboxyl group, CO2, most likely. Okay. So from the glutamate to gamma, so the carboxy functional group was added to the gamma carbon of glutamate. Basically, that's what this is saying. You understand your chemistry very well. So which makes modified glutamic acid a much stronger chelator of calcium 2 plus. Okay, so the results of studies of abnormal prothrombin synthesized in the absence of vitamin K or the presence of vitamin K antagonists, those compounds that antagonize the action of vitamin K, would now cause, such as this compound, dicumarol. There are other compounds that are also antagonists of vitamin K. Now, prothrombin that is synthesized in the absence of vitamin K or in the presence of compounds that antagonize vitamin K will now lead to defective blood clotting. And then instead of the blood to clot, somebody that sustains a wound will end up with excessive bleeding, right? You understand? So if you see in this last point here, we mentioned the dicumarol, such a related vitamin K antagonist. Warfarin is another anti-vitamin K antagonist and can be used as effective poisons. Basically, they prevent blood from clotting. And so if there's an internal bleeding, the animal will bleed until it's died because there won't be a mechanism in the body to prevent that bleeding from persisting. You understand? So deficiency of vitamin K, hemorrhage, just bleeding. As nurses, you should know this more than me, right? When there's a little blood, bleeding may continue for a very long time. Basically, that's what we're saying. Okay. Okay. So let's take your time and read. I think this is quite straightforward. Uh, and if you have any questions, you can post it in the forum. Thank you very much. All right.